Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Masters of Technology Happy Hour, where once a week I have a drink with someone I meet in the course of business, but someone I'd like to get to know better as a person. Richard Doyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I usually do a little research on my guests, but I didn't have to in your case. We've known each other for so long. You were a staple at the in all the SolidWorks worlds and whatever it turned out to be called later. Were you around when it changed to 3D Experience World? Are you with them still?
Yeah, I missed that was the last one was before they changed it to 3D Experience World. So
Okay.
SolidWorks World 2018. I think it was I want to say it was the 20th anniversary.
Uh,
I believe we still have all those 20-year backpacks for the folks that had been to all 20 of them.
all right.
Got some special backpacks, and it was great.
Yeah.
I got to recognize them from the stage. They were all sitting in one area there on Community Day, so that was
Yeah.
fun. I want to say there was maybe 20 people out of
Uh,
all the folks that ever attended SolidWorks World. 20 people had been to all of them at that point.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Now, Richard, where do you live now? I think I want to say Reno or Las Vegas. Is it?
yeah, I'm in Las Vegas now.
Oh, Las Vegas. Okay.
Moved out here in late 2018. My kids are grown. I was an empty nester. Uh, Went through an unfortunate divorce, and my ex-wife moved back to Canada. And I
Oh,
thought, I've been coming out to Las Vegas a couple of times a year for several years. And I thought, well, now's a good time to go ahead and make the move. And I'm really glad I did. I really enjoy it out here. I love the climate, especially. I like warm. Although I was a little surprised at how cold it can get here in the winter.
oh, yeah, yeah. I've been there. So I gotta say, so you did you come to Las Vegas on several times a year by choice? Because I was
Yes.
felt like I was forced to go there for all the conferences that were there, but you like
No,
it.
I love it out here. I love the lights. I love the casinos. I love the strip. I'm a poker player too. I play Texas No Limit Hold'em.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
and which I was able to play a little bit in Texas,
Uh,
but it was more oh, how do I want to put this? More of a social experience in Texas. It wasn't real big money. We played in a
yeah,
bar poker league, so big prizes were maybe $50 if you won the tournament. Whereas out here, it's a little more professional out here. Now, I'm not saying I'm a professional, but I have won several tournaments at Caesar's Palace, and I actually have a cash in the World Series of Poker from a couple of years ago. So,
is that
while I'm
right?
not to the level of the Negreanus and the rest of those pros, I think I'm a better than average player. So,
Oh wow. Okay, now that's a poker is your specialty. I can't help but think of the legends of John Hirschtick and his skill at 21, big black chap,
yep,
right?
yep,
Yeah, yeah. So there's a history of visiting the casinos there at SolidWorks, huh? By the way, I always thought
sure.
of you as a SolidWorks guy, and you were like the between you and Marie Blanchard, the two biggest advocates for users in the company, right? And I got to tell the audience, you go by the name
The user group guy.
user group guy, right?
Yep.
Right. So
So that's kind of a funny story too. I wasn't in this particular conversation, but apparently I think it was Brenda Monahan maybe that
uh,
was having a conversation with somebody, and the name came up. Richard Doyle's name came up, and somebody said, "Well, who's that?" And I think it was Brenda that said, "He's that user group guy," and
user,
that just kind of stuck from there. So that's from I don't know, maybe 15, 18 years ago.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and when I left the company, I was a little bit bitter, and
yeah,
I changed all my handles to X Swuggen, and finally I grew out of that. And so now
uh-huh.
I'm still the user group guy. I will always be the user group guy. It's my email address. It's my Twitter handle. So I appreciate it, and I
Yeah.
revel in it. So
Do you mind saying your full email address for the audience, or
yeah, it's the user group guy at outlook.com.
at outlook.com?
You can follow me on X too if you really want to.
Yeah.
I removed the old account that I had. I had a couple of thousand followers, and
Yeah.
I've started a new one. It's more of a personal thing. I post a lot of my poker losses mostly
Yeah.
because they're mostly bad beats.
How come you deleted X? Was it because of that?
It was that bitter pill I was swallowing a couple of months after I left the company. I did not
Uh,
want to leave, but I felt like, not that I was forced to. I just
who
I didn't like the direction the company was heading.
was the CEO at the time when you
That
were
was John Paulo. John Paulo Bassi was the CEO,
Paulo?
and
Okay.
I even took my concerns to him, and
Hmm.
he gave me the, well, we have to do what we have to do. And so
Yeah.
I frankly, that direction I wasn't comfortable with, and wasn't going to try and push something on customers that they didn't want.
You mean that they were pushing Dassault systems and the 3D experience onto SolidWorks users, and that just didn't play well
Yes.
with you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now I don't mind, certainly the company has their, what they need to do to move forward. And I understand that.
Yeah.
I remember a meeting with John Paulo and somebody else whose name I won't mention, where it was discussed that the 3D experience was really more for new customers. That the existing desktop product worked very well for the people that had it, and they were really happy with that. When they started talking to me about, we want to show off 3D experience at the user group meetings, and I I was totally against that, because again, these were our existing customers. We
Uh,
never upsell in the user group meetings. Nobody brings a checkbook to the user group meetings. They're there to learn. They're there to network. They're not there to buy anything.
yeah.
And every now and then, if you want to
Well,
throw
that's because you're a purist and you know about user groups. They're for users and they're to help them use their software better, right? And to
yep,
to
yep,
mingle and be a community. And I totally agree with you. It's become something. It's become a selling event. It's become a sales conference and marketing conference.
well, I want to give SolidWorks still some credit, because
Yeah.
of all of the CAD companies right now, with the exception of PTC, who has PTC user, but that's a separate organization. So kudos to SolidWorks for still supporting a network of close to 300 groups, I think,
Yeah.
that they have out there, and they're still supporting, as far as I know, financially. They've done some things. I've seen some things online that I wouldn't have been happy with at the time. But for the most part, and I stay in touch with a lot of the current user group leaders and former user group leaders, and so far they're pretty happy with the support that they're getting. I think it's Dan Wagner is the guy that's running that up there. So
Mhm.
they're fairly happy. I think they've got some new folks, maybe younger people, that are more open to the 3D experience platform and showing things off like that. But I
Yeah.
think the old guard is still pretty solid when it comes to, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're here to do some tips and tricks, or presentation on sheet metal or assemblies, or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
not to sell things.
I saw it sort of evolve into something other than a pure user group. I've attended many SolidWorks conferences as well as Autodesk AUs and others too, including Onshape actually, and and others and several others, CATIA user groups, and I've seen them develop. Well, I gotta say the CATIA user group is still a pure user group.
Oh,
The
yeah.
yeah, what do they call that one?
Uh, COE, CATIA Operator
COE,
Exchange.
COE,
Yeah.
still owned by users, still run by users, and try to keep. I mean, they threw me out once because I was a reporter because they didn't want to. They didn't want to have any junk about Katia being out there in the press. Nevertheless, I was impressed with them because they were so like this is for the users, I saw this happening at AU, specifically AU with Autodesk. It started out as a for the users, and it was always about they had a Top Gun, which I was involved with. They had top 10 lists. They had classes for the users. That's what Lynn Allen, spent quite a bit of almost all of her career there until the end uh,
Yeah.
with Autodesk. And she was like, I called her the Queen of CAD. She was rain on the stage. She would, everybody would love her classes. Her tips classes were like, oh, they were standing room only, right? And then I saw it evolve
Oh, yeah.
into like where it became a place where Autodesk could sell users on their verticals, right? They would use it. They knew AutoCAD users were there to help them learn AutoCAD better, but they wanted them to switch to the users. So it was I wouldn't say a relentless pitch, but a distinct pitch to like, okay, you got to move to the verticals. Otherwise, you're just a dumbass may not be the right word, but you need you gotta get out, you gotta get in there and get in with our. It was also profit motivated, and I didn't feel that was right. And I saw that's also with 3D Experience. Remember, were you there when Monica Mangini was the CMO?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, right. And she took
And, you
over the
know,
stage. And all. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I've got a great story about Monica.
Yeah,
So we went to my only trip to the Belize campus.
yeah. By the way, you know
Um,
this is being recorded, right? And
yeah,
unless
yeah. But
unless you tell me otherwise, I'm gonna keep everything on record. Okay.
no, this is actually a good story, and
Okay.
it kind of goes back to Co and some of the other things.
Yeah.
So I almost got involved with Co and almost got involved with all of the other Deso verticals when it
Uh,
came to user groups.
yeah.
So there was a time when Monica stood up, and she stood up in front of all of us in this big, huge marketing meeting. At that
Yeah.
point, I was under marketing, and
Uh,
she started talking about user groups. And at one point, she pointed to me and she said, "Just do what Richard does," and
oh,
that was it. And she walked off the stage.
well.
Um, I don't know if you know Cecile Doan. She used to be a bigwig at Katia,
Yeah.
and she was also involved with Co and some of those things. And
Uh,
she talked to me about moving me into a worldwide position, and overseeing all of these different groups and all of these articles. And then she left the company or moved on, and so that didn't happen. And then another vice president invited me to a meeting in I think it was Providence, Rhode Island,
uh,
because she had seen some unhappiness in me with the way that the user groups were going. And so we sat down for a couple hours, and she said the same things to me. We see you as encompassing the entire Deso systems and all over the world. And then she got sick and had to leave the company. So
uh,
I never did get the worldwide verticals through the whole Dassault systems that I wanted,
yeah. Yeah.
which is unfortunate. I think I might still be there if that. Well, actually, I'd be retired by now, but
Yeah.
I might have still been there for a few more years.
I suspected that John McElhaney was also very much a SolidWorks first brand guy, and when during the takeover, I think he was very resistant to becoming a Dassault Systems guy, and uh, and I think I there was a meeting that he had with Bernard Charles. I went to, and then right after that, he was not at SolidWorks. Right.
Yeah.
So I always took about it. My interpretation was that he was sticking up for SolidWorks and wanted SolidWorks to be independent. That's Bernard did not see it that way, and he was let go, and they brought in, actually, if I may say, somebody more compliant. That was Jeff Ray came
Yeah.
onto the scene, right? And that account has
Yeah,
never been
and
disputed. It's never been confirmed, but it's never been
yeah.
disputed. So I'm going with it.
I loved Jeff Ray. Jeff Ray was honestly my favorite CEO, for a
Yeah.
couple of reasons. Number one, and I've written about this
Uh,
on LinkedIn. He and I did some traveling through Texas. He came down to do some user group meetings, and I think we were in San Antonio. We stopped for some Tex-Mex lunch, and like any good CEO, he was asking me about the job and how things are going. And he said, "Is there anything we can do to make your life better?" I said, at that time I was a contract employee. And I said, "Well, yeah, I'd love to be a full-time employee." And he was just shocked that I wasn't already. I'd been a contractor for a couple of years, actually. And within
oh,
2 weeks, I was a full-time employee.
oh, okay.
So,
Okay. So,
kudos, great for him.
yeah.
I also feel kind of bad for him. I'm not sure he was compliant. I think he was compelled. And I always go back to one particular moment. I think it was SolidWorks
Mhm.
World 2010 in San Antonio, when he
Mhm.
stood on that stage and said, "We have to kill SolidWorks before somebody else
Oh,
kills it."
that was famous. That was famous.
Oh my goodness. My heart sank when I heard that. I couldn't believe I was hearing that from Jeff. Um,
Uh,
eh, but again, I think he was compelled. Um,
yeah.
and then another thing that I
But I
recall.
think he tried to clarify what he meant was the version of SolidWorks as we know it was going to go away in favor of something that was more modern, if I could say that, or more Dassault systems oriented, but it
Yep.
wasn't like it
And
was going to go away completely, correct?
no, well, I'm not sure because what
Oh,
they had at the, if you remember, what they had at the time was something called mechanical conceptual or something similar to that,
yes.
which, you know, went out into some sort of beta testing and eventually they killed that whole thing. It never got commercialized as far as I know.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, between the statement and what they had in the offering at that moment,
Uh,
that people saw and went, oh my God, you're going to kill SolidWorks and it's just going to kill SolidWorks.
did he say that before they assembled multitude, the users, or did he?
Yes, that was from the main stage at SolidWorks World.
Oh my God. Okay,
Yeah.
so that not just your heart sank, but anybody who's a SolidWorks user would be
Yeah,
in.
I think
Where's
I'd
this
love to
coming?
go back. I'd love to go back and look at the Twitter feed at that moment.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
press ran with it. The press
yeah,
was
they
like
did.
all over it.
They did.
Dilip Menezes, I don't know if you remember Dilip. He commented on
Oh,
it. He
sure.
was, yeah, he was.
Yep.
I
You
think a
know,
lot
and
of. Yeah, go ahead.
there was another instance with Jeff that I think also portended a lot of this. I think he was doing like a quick news conference kind of thing at SolidWorks World. Somebody
Uh,
asked the question, you know, what do you have to say about the Dassaultification of SolidWorks? And he turned around and he said, you know what? Nobody asks, what about the SolidWorksification of Dassault?
yeah,
I think Dassault heard that and said, huh, hold my beer.
yeah. Hold my wine. That sort of offended them, I suppose, right? That they were going to be
I would think so.
Katia. By all, I would say just to be really fair and objective, I think Katia is this. uh, I don't know if you call this a superior CAD product, right? In the
Oh,
eyes of many,
sure,
right? Right.
sure.
So it did not behoove them to admit to what's this mainstream product? No, no way. That's not
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
We
No,
bought it. It's
and
useful. It makes money, but no, this is
yep,
we're a Dassault company. I can totally see that.
yep. And you know, there was a time where there was a lot of what you call it, a lot of data behind CATIA that could have been used in SolidWorks, and they were told no, no, can't do that. So
Uh, so what exactly transpired then? You were committed to how should I say, promote the SolidWorks brand or the SolidWorks product, and you said it was starting to go in a different direction. You still like Jeff Ray though, and then what was his predecessor?
Bernard Seco, Bertrand
Yeah,
Seco, that's it.
yeah.
Again, another one of my favorites. He and
Yeah.
again, I wrote about. I don't know if you've seen any of the LinkedIn posts that I've been doing this year,
I'm
but I've
reading
been.
them. Hey, and I gotta tell you, I'm really enjoying them. I think you you've talked to a lot of users and have them, tell their story. It's like what I'm doing.
I'm just writing some things. Basically, I mean, it's really the only outlet that I have left, other than X. So I'm planning to retire at the end of this year.
Uh,
I'm trying to work myself through the incredible amount of debt that I racked up, you know, after 6 months off. And even before I got laid off at Onshape, in June of, I think it was 2023. So I had planned to retire at the end of 2024.
you were the user group guy at Onshape.
Yeah, that's another
Right.
story too. But
Oh, okay.
this was just after the pandemic was starting to you know, everybody was getting back to business. In June of 23, my truck got stolen right from my
Oh,
apartment complex, and it was
oh
fully
no.
paid off. It was going to be my, you know, my forever vehicle.
Yeah.
So I didn't think much about it at the time. I didn't want to, but I financed another car. I had to, so I picked up a, you know, a quick 4-year loan. And I told my manager, I said, okay, you know, the end of 24 isn't going to be it. Now I'm going to retire at the end of 25. And everybody seemed happy with that. Well, it was just 2 months later that they laid me off. And it took me 6 months to find another job. I don't know if it's ageism. I don't know what it was. I did an awful lot of interviews for jobs that I was wholly qualified for, and ended up taking a design job here in Las Vegas, Henderson actually,
Uh,
for, and I took a 50% pay cut.
damn it.
So,
So Ed Songibo.
oh sure, yeah, I've known Ed
Right?
for years.
We've had him on the show, and
Yeah,
he had a similar situation. After he
yeah,
was laid off from one company, supremely talented, right? A power user if there ever was one, right?
yeah,
And he suffered for months without
Yeah,
any, even any feedback, right? He'd send out, 1,000, you know how you do it, 1,000 resumes,
sure.
nobody answers. And I couldn't be any more qualified. It couldn't be
Yeah,
anybody more qualified for a SolidWorks position than him,
yeah.
right?
Well, I finally got lucky. I ended up at a place, Extreme Manufacturing, Ahern Engineering. It's the Ahern family of companies, run by Don Ahern. Great guy, super guy. Owns a lot of stuff here in Las Vegas. He's got a
Doing
company and a
what?
hotel.
Doing mechanical design?
Yeah, I'm doing mechanical design,
Okay.
using SolidWorks 8 hours a day. And to
Mhm.
all those folks that over the years I said, well, if it's slowing down or it's crashing, that's probably your fault. I apologize. Now that I'm using it on a regular basis, okay, I can
Okay.
see some of the frustrations that users come up with.
All right.
Um,
You were actually not just a user group guy, you were actually a user. So that's the only way you got a job as a SolidWorks
yeah, well,
mechanical
yeah,
designer, right?
I started using SolidWorks in '97.
Okay.
Um,
And you
back,
never let
you know,
go.
yeah,
You
and I
kept
used
using.
it up until until I hired on at SolidWorks. And then
Oh,
when I put together presentations, I always did all my own modeling. I didn't download any of the company assets or anything,
okay.
because I love doing CAD. And so that kept my skills up. I always did beta testing. I always looked at the new releases. I read the what's new manuals line by line by line by line, trying to find those little nuggets that don't make the
Yeah.
press, but that I could put into a presentation that I used to call what's really new in SolidWorks, until
Right.
marketing made me change it to what else is new in SolidWorks.
I get a little more credit here because you know how they say you always envy in others what you don't have in yourself. And I was an AutoCAD and mechanical desktop expert. In fact, I taught classes with using those products. And but as soon as I got into publishing, it was like a decline in my abilities to use a product, and I never was able to get that back. You kept it up, which is why
Yep.
I'm commending you for it. But these days, you know what? If I have to go use a CAD product, let's say I'm making something in my workshop, oh my God, it's really difficult for me.
Yeah.
This stuff, so much has changed. I haven't kept up with it like you have.
It, It
Yeah.
really has, and I guess I want to say maybe I'm lucky but unlucky. We're still using SolidWorks 2022 right now. So
Oh,
the last version I had any real experience on was 2018. So things haven't changed that much. We're
right.
getting ready to move up to, I believe it's 2025, and I've looked through all the what's new manuals. There's not a whole lot there that we're going to see, but we're paying
Yeah.
the subscription, so we might as well upgrade.
Right. Right.
I have a free Onshape account too, and that's actually my preferred CAD system at this time. If I were to start a
Are you
company
saying
from
that?
from
Okay,
scratch,
I gotta read your eyes. I know you're a poker player, so I won't be able to read your eyes, but do you really mean that, or are you are you just like saying that out of spite for SolidWorks?
no, 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 no. I honestly mean that. Some of the things in
Okay.
Onshape, the number one thing in Onshape that beats SolidWorks hands down is the way they handle mating. I mean, if you can mate objects together with one mate instead of
Yeah,
four,
yeah.
you save an incredible amount of time. Now I've got the free version, so I can't do a lot of rendering and things like that. But I still want to work on probably never going to be able to afford to build the tiny house now. That was always a dream of mine, but
Uh,
that's not going to stop me from trying to design it, and having
yeah,
some fun
okay.
with that. So
Right, right.
my retirement plan is to have some fun with CAD and visit every national park in the country, with my brand new tent and all my camping equipment. I want to design my tiny house. I'll do some LinkedIn things. I'll do some Twitter things. He said, yeah, 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 sure, no problem. So they hooked me up with the account. I guess a couple of weeks later, after he had talked to Joe Dunn, he called me back and said, hey, why don't you come to work for us and start putting together a user group network?
Uh,
And at first I told him no. I said, John, I came out here to semi-retire. I want to find a nice, easy job and just settle
right.
down. And in fact, I did find a quick design job that didn't work out. I talked my way into it. They were looking for an industrial designer. I told them I'm not an industrial designer, but there's so many more things I can do for you.
Oh, yeah.
And
That
it
means you
just
had to use a
didn't.
lot of surfacing, right? So that's
Yeah, and it
yeah,
just didn't work out. And
yeah.
so that was about a month. So I called John back and I said, hey, look, all right, let's do this. Within 6 months, we had 27 groups formed. And of those groups within the rest of that year, those groups, all of them had had at least 2 meetings, and some of them had had 3 meetings. And things were, I thought, were going really well. I was looking easy at 50 user groups after the first year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit.
It actually brought them back, because I thought they were like sort of declining, not just because you left a little bit, but the user groups were like not a factor in a lot of things, except for the big user group conference.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the modern user just doesn't go for it. It doesn't go to them, right? So it's a bunch of guys like us that like to go to them now.
Yeah. That's, and you know, that I think that's probably been the case for the entire time that user groups have been around. It's mostly the more mature users. You know, you'll get a couple of the newbies, but I think a lot of the beginners are even afraid to go to a user group meeting. They're afraid maybe they don't fit in. Maybe this isn't the place for them. And if you're listening out there, new users, that's not true. Get out to a user group meeting. You'll learn a lot, and you'll meet some great people. But I remember exactly where I was in Los Angeles when everything started shutting down. We had a meeting that night. We were all fist bumping at that point. So, you know, but we weren't overly concerned. In fact, I thought the pandemic would be over within a couple of weeks. I didn't think it was going to be a worldwide thing. But there was a meeting that was supposed to be scheduled for the next night, and I called the group leader down there, and we both agreed probably not a good idea to go through with that meeting. I checked my flight, which was out the next evening. It had already been canceled. So I rented a car and I drove home. And that was the last live Onshape user group meeting we ever had. Now we did switch over to doing some online groups. We did well over 100 online meetings, but they just weren't the same. You know, we had some good ones, we had some bad ones, but I mean, you can't. I don't know if you remember. I actually, when I won the community award at CoFest, and I gave my speech, and I think I ended with the line that you can't have a meaningful conversation in 140 characters or less, and you can't shake hands with an avatar.
Or have a beer with them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it was the best thing about user group meetings, I thought, with the camaraderie that people had when they went out for pizza afterwards. I mean, I had great meetings. That's really what,
and that's the thing, and that's what I really loved about the groups, and that's what I tried to, you know, lead by example, and always be that, you know, that outgoing person and introduce people as much as I possibly could. I don't know if you read the Betty Baker story on LinkedIn, but one of my favorite stories. So Betty runs the group up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. It's called LEWA, La Crosse, Eau Claire, and Winona. And we were at an event at Gillette Stadium. SolidWorks event. I think it was a launch event, probably, you know, new release kind of thing. And I was milling around in the lobby of the hotel there, and when Betty showed up, and so she was hungry. I had something going on. I had a meeting or something that I had to get to. So it was just my nature. I thought, well, I'll just bring her to some SolidWorks, you know, some fellow user group leaders, and drop her off. Well, she was shocked. She didn't expect me to just leave her there with people she didn't know. And again, I mean, in my mind, they all knew each other, you know, but I just dropped her off there with a couple of guys, Steve Calvert and Michael Lord. And you know, she got over the initial shock, and they've all become best friends. And she loves to tell that story too. So,
but
yeah,
you brought people together, right? You brought people together.
That's
they
what it was all about.
Shake hands and have break bread and drink beer, of course, right?
So just when the pandemic had finally ended, and my manager and I were both starting to talk about getting these live groups going back up again, I was actually reaching out to some of the previous group leaders to see what their temperature was on the whole thing. And I think I know who was behind the decision, but I won't say. But the decision was, we're not going to do user groups. And I was laid off, and so was my manager. Both of us at the same time.
So that was a complete surprise. Really surprised. I didn't know it had officially ended, because I was just at a Bay Area. It was a separate company, a hardware startup group, and they had a big thing at a brewery, and it was packed. I gotta say. I was surprised. I thought you guys had done with this, and here it is, a ton of people. I mean, I think maybe it was just the beer, and it was at a
Well,
brewery.
that's certainly part of it, and the
Okay.
brewery is the second part. No, those are marketing events. I mean, they certainly bring customers in, but they also bring prospects in.
Yeah.
They bring companies in to do presentations on how great Onshape has been.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a user group meeting,
Yeah.
but I think they're fantastic events. I got to attend a couple of them. What do they call them? MDA, or something like that. So I attended a couple of them, and they are really good events. But
Yeah.
they do a lot of marketing up front and a lot of contacting people. So, they unlike a regular a user group meeting where the user group leader is the guy that has to, get everybody to show up. And he's usually
Yeah.
got a database of his members. And back when I was with SolidWorks, we would help with a targeted email once a year, that kind of thing to keep going.
Yeah.
But, there wasn't a big marketing push for the quarterly user group meetings where,
Yeah.
I always said if the menu includes cherry tomato bruschetta and some of those other fancy foods, it's not a user group meeting. That should be,
No, it's gotta be pizza
yeah,
and beer. I think Autodesk one time tried to, oh, Autodesk because it's headquartered in Marin County, close to wine country. They tried it with wine one time. They had the featured drink was wine. And you could tell most of the users were like, yeah, but where's the
yeah.
beer? Uh,
It's funny. I was pretty adamant about not serving alcohol at user group meetings,
yeah,
for a couple of reasons. Number one, I didn't think it was appropriate for somebody to get drunk at a user group meeting. And I'm not saying that everybody would. Maybe everybody would have one or two, but there's always that one or two people in there that
yes,
shoot
that's
them down.
true. Yeah,
And secondly, since we were funding the user group meetings, I didn't want anything to do with the liability on that.
the
So,
liability, of
um,
course.
hey, look at that. The power just went back on.
All right.
Hey, how about that? I can play my 4 o'clock poker tournament now.
Oh, okay. So you do online stuff now all the time now.
Well, yeah. I'm hyper focused this year on paying off all my debts. Like I say, I incurred quite a few of them. So I
Uh,
play online $5 and $10 tournaments. And I do well enough that I don't have to add any money to the bankroll, but I'm not making a ton of money. I
yeah.
think what the ITM in the money, my percentage is about 27%, which is on the high side.
Oh,
But again,
okay.
I'm playing with these online smaller entry tournaments. You're playing against people that
Yeah.
really aren't that good at poker. So as long as you exhibit some patience and the occasional well-timed aggression, it's generally easy not to have to feed the bankroll.
Right.
A few years ago when I was playing $100 online tournaments, I actually won a couple of $3,500 first prizes. So it can be done, but
One of the ones that I hear about, I'm not a player, but I hear about the ones that offer really big prizes, I think, right?
yeah,
The ones that are televised.
yeah. So there's circuits all over the world. The big
What
one
is
is the
that? What
World
is,
Series of Poker,
oh, okay.
and that's
Yeah.
the one they have here in Las Vegas. It's every year, and in fact, it's starting. I want to say late May.
Oh,
I've
what do you have
already
to do to
looked.
get
There's
into
I can
that?
only afford to play one tournament this year. All you have to do is pay the money.
Oh,
They
really?
have close to 100 tournaments during the couple of months that it runs.
Uh,
The cheapest tournament, that's the one I'm going to play in this year. It's called the Gladiator, and it's a
yeah.
$300 entry. But they generally get anywhere between 15 and 20,000 entries on that tournament. So the prize money turns out to be pretty good. Now the main
Oh.
event, that's the big one. That's $10,000 to enter that tournament.
Entry fees, 10K?
$10,000, and they still get 9,500 players in that tournament.
Do they
And
sell
first,
out? Are they, is
well, no, that's not the max. That's
oh,
just
okay.
about the average number of players that are playing in that. The top prize for that is generally $8 to $9 million.
Oh, that's
So,
big money. That's a lot of trucks.
yep, I've actually qualified for an online tournament to get a free entry into that main event,
Tell me
and
what you have
that
to do
have
to qualify besides, you said a lot of money, but what else? Do you have
I
to
want to I want
demonstrate some
to
skills?
I won a tournament online, a
Oh,
tournament for the free entry into that, and
okay.
that happens next Sunday. So I'm going to be hyper focused on that tournament, and I suspect close to 4,000 or 5,000 players in that tournament.
Uh,
And they're only giving out one seat. So we'll see how that goes.
yeah, all right. Well, good luck with that. That's
Thanks.
great.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
It's been really good talking to you. It's great catching up. I hope to talk to
It's
you
been my
soon.
pleasure. Yep. Thanks for Pinder. Yep. You
All
betcha.
right. Bye, Richard.
Bye.
Bye.
And that concludes this episode of the Masters of Technology Happy Hour. I hope you enjoyed our chat and will join me as we talk to some of the most interesting people in the design and engineering software community.